Three teams in the Big East have new coaches for next season, with Ed Cooley moving to Georgetown from Providence, Rick Pitino going from Iona to St. John's, and Kim English going to Providence. While the former two may have more pedigree, where Ed Cooley has gone to the NCAA tournament 7 of the last 11 years with Providence, and then Rick Pitino has 2 national titles and 7 Final Fours. I think Kim English has honestly had the best start to his coaching tenure, even though it's only been a month of these 3 coaches. Hi, this is Austin Weber with Weber Bracketology, where every day is Selection Sunday. When new coaches get hired right after the season ends, like many do, during this day and age, they're kind of thrust right into the middle of the transfer portal because the portal opens up right after Selection Sunday, so players are leaving, sometimes before coaches even get fired or hired, and then there's just 2 months of players nonstop leaving and kind of coaches like scrambling to pick up these good players while also trying to retain their own. And, it's kind of difficult to retain your players when you're a new coach because you don't really have weight with these players. You didn't recruit them. You probably haven't talked to them very much. So it's kind of hard to get them to stay when you take over a program. Both Georgetown and St. John's saw max exoduses of players, with pretty much everyone who played for Georgetown leaving, and St. John's losing everyone but Joel Soriano, who was their leading scorer, but still, they lost every other player basically that played any minutes. But Providence, they haven't had that issue. They've only had one really big player, Jared Bynum, leaving the portal. They've had a couple other players go, but Jared Bynum's really the only bigger name player they've had, and on top of that, they've kept Bryce, Hopkins, and Devin Carter, 2 players that could have gone anywhere in the country and gotten starting minutes. Jaden Pierre, who's coming off of a rather solid freshman season, didn't get a lot of minutes. He had entered the portal, but he's staying, and I think that's another huge thing for Kim English to have at Providence besides Hopkins and Carter, because I think Pierre has a really good shot at having a breakout season. He's athletic, he's bouncy, and he's a really good passer, so I think he'll be a really good point guard here during his sophomore season, and that's just another really good player that Kim English was able to maintain at Providence. It seems like with all these players staying and a player who entered the portal deciding to come back, Kim English, in just about 4 weeks only, he has been able to establish himself really as the leader of Providence in such a short amount of time with really, really talented players. And that doesn't seem like it should be crazy, but with the way this transfer portal works, players can leave whenever they want, and players who do get a lot of playing time and do have a lot of success end up leaving, whether it be because of the coach or just because they want to play for an even better team, or they just want to get more and different opportunities. I think Kim English even further showed that players really want to play with him, because not only is he keeping these Providence players, but he's getting some players from George Mason where he was coaching before, and not just getting any players, but Josh Oduro, the best player from the team. Not only does Kim English not have the resumes that Ed Cooley and Rick Pitino has, but he's only been a head coach for 2 seasons, and one of those seasons was below 500. When you just take a look at that and really so many other factors, it's really a surprise that Kim English has been able to keep this team together, and I think it's a really good sign for the season for Providence to have their new coach able to keep so many players, because in college basketball, chemistry means a lot, especially when players are leaving and just moving more than ever. Having a group that stays together is really beneficial. You could kind of see it with a team like Creighton this year, who had a lot of players that stayed together. They made an Elite 8 run. Miami made it to the Final Four. UConn had a lot of players back. They won the national title. So just chemistry and experience, which is what he's bringing back essentially, those are just 2 huge factors when it comes to winning in college basketball today, especially in the tournament. If you just look at the starting lineup that Providence could have next season, you got Jaden Pierre, Devin Carter, Devontae Gaines, another transfer from George Mason. You got Bryce Hopkins and Josh Oduro. That's a really good starting lineup. And the Big East might be tougher next year than it was this past year when it was a very good conference. And I think just that starting 5, if you just showed me that, I would think that this team is competing for a Big East title. And the team may not be super deep and talented after that, but it's also only April, and it's also going to be just his first season, Kim English, coaching this team. Obviously, there's a long way to go in this offseason process, and Ed Cooley and Rick Pitino could have far better rosters by the time November comes around. But I kind of just expected those two to have more success just given their track records. Ed Cooley has been great in the transfer portal during his time at Providence, but I mean he's gotten some good players for Georgetown. It's not something he hasn't done. It's just that he's had to rebuild so much of a roster that where he's at doesn't look quite as good as where Kim English is. And then Rick Pitino, he's a two-time national champion. He's been coaching for what is it, almost 40 years. He's been a head coach for about 40 plus years. You would just expect players would want to play for him, and I kind of expected like all of his really good Iona players because he had a lot of talented players there. Iona has been really good during his time there. They were good before he got there, but they've been very good while he was there. But he's only gotten a couple guys, so I kind of just expected more from them, and I didn't quite expect this much from Kim English. I really like Kim English, and I don't know if he's going to lead Providence back to the tournament this season in his first year, because it's not like Providence has a great track record of going every year. I mean, Ed Cooley went 7 of 11 years, but they were very rarely highly seeded. They're usually in that 9, 10, 11 range. They were a 4 seed in their Sweet 16 run, but Providence, they're not expected to be great every year. They're expected to make the tournament, and I think this team right now just looks like they could be in the tournament, especially with Bryce Hopkins. That's really just the biggest thing, is that they were able to keep Bryce Hopkins. But I'm expecting at least they're going to be on the fringe, on the bubble of making the tournament at the very least. Just looking at what they have on the roster, and it's not like Kim English did terrible at George Mason last season. They won 20 games, so he can win. He can have success. 2 years into a program like George Mason, and you already have 20 wins. I mean, that's pretty good. It's not a school, though they do have that Final Four appearance. It's not a school that really is even expected to make the NCAA tournament in most seasons. Regardless of what happens, I don't see Providence having much of a drop-off, if any, in this first season after Ed Cooley leaves and Kim English comes in. I don't know what that says for the future success when it comes to recruiting and stuff like that, or even on the court performance, especially when he brings in all of his own players. But I think Kim English has done a great job so far in his first month as the Providence coach, and I'm really excited to see just what kind of success he has, and I think it's going to be a really exciting team next season, just with the kind of talent that they have. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, and comment down below what you think of the transfer portal so far, what coaches and what teams do you think are doing great, and if there's anything you want me to talk about on this channel. But thank you so much, and make sure you subscribe.